Hi there, I'm Stephanie Barnard with Sizzix at Scrapbook.com. Are you ready to get inky? We're going to get started learning all about stamps, how to clean them, how to use them, and why do we love them so much. So let's get started. Now here I have an example of a die set and a stamp set that's sold together. Now Sizzix is famous for this because we put it all in the same packaging, so you have stamps and coordinating dies, which are fabulous when you want to die cut your products or die cut your stamped images. But we first need to stamp, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these clear stamp packages and I'm going to peel back the acetate. And you'll see that I have 8 stamps here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you can tell I've used some of them quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel one off. And the first thing you're going to notice when you get this is it's kind of sticky, which is fabulous. You want it to be a little sticky because it's going to adhere to your acrylic block. Now, because this is a frame, I could easily accidentally skew this a little too much. So I want to gently just let it take its own form, kind of like that, and just lay it down, just like that. Once it's found its form, I can lay it down and I'm ready to go. Now, normally, you're going to be using something that won't mess up its form. It'll just stay in the exact shape it's going to be. So this one says, "You are amazing." And I can simply just put it on my block and I'm ready to go. Now, here's a tip. You're going to want to make sure you have a couple different sizes of blocks. Blocks are fabulous, and in all honesty, you can never have too many. Because sometimes you want to use this, but then you don't want to put it back because you want to use that stamp again. So it's nice to be able to put it off to the side and bring it back and have it already ready to go. So you're going to want to have quite a few blocks. You can have different sizes too, because as you can see, this one fits on there perfectly. You want to have small ones too. Now this block is too small for this stamp. But if I had little pieces or little stamps, let me show you. Here's an example. Here I have my cute little bird set, but I have a little tiny flower. See how little that stamp is right there? Now that'll fit perfect on that block. But I would not want to use this big block for that little tiny stamp. Because if I were to do that, I would turn this over and I would have way too much rocking going on. Look at that. It just rocks all over. I want to have that little stamp on a little block so I'm in control when I stamp, just like that. No rocking involved. So that's just a quick tip because you definitely want to have quite a few blocks and you want to get a variety of sizes. Now, another question I'm often asked quite a bit is how do I clean my stamps? I use cheap baby wipes from the big box store. I like the yellow canister. I get the cheapest ones because what I do is I'll pull them out, and this can is almost gone because I use them quite often, and I even tear them into little pieces when I clean my stamps. So after every use, you're supposed to clean your stamps. You can just give it a quick wipe like that, and I even save this piece and I put it back in there for next time. Until it's dark or black or dark gray, you can use it over and over again. So inks, let's talk about inks. Oh, actually first, let's talk about our surface here. This is the secret weapon. The secret weapon, or the stamper's secret weapon, is extremely important for any kind of stamping because you want to make sure that you have a squishy section or a squishy piece in between your stamped image. So if I'm going to stamp this, let's grab a piece of cardstock and let's grab some ink. I'm going to ink this up and I'm going to stamp it. Just like that. And I'm going to get a beautiful impression. But if I didn't have my stamping mat underneath me, I might not get direct contact from my stamp to my cardstock. Because think about in the olden days when we used rubber stamps that had the wood blocks. We had a wood block, a gray piece of foam, rubber, and then our hard table. So it's all about physics. You need to have 2 squishy items, 1, 2, in between 2 hard items, my block and my table. That way I can get direct contact from my stamp to my cardstock. So you'll definitely want to get one of these fabulous stamping mats. And the nice thing about this secret weapon is it also has a strip here and also the back, which is perfect for piercing. So if I wanted to poke holes or I wanted to add brads into my projects, I would easily be able to poke into this strip or on the back. So that's fabulous as well. Now, when we're talking about stamping, we want to make sure that we choose a cardstock that's going to absorb the ink. So on this cardstock here, you can see it has this beautiful texture on it. But the problem is, if I were to stamp on that texture, I would get kind of like a little, it wouldn't be a perfect stamped image is what it wouldn't look like. This is nice, smooth cardstock, and look at how beautiful that's stamped. So I wouldn't want to stamp on the texture. If I wanted to use this color, I can flip it over, and the other side is much smoother. And this is the stamp surface that I would want to use when I'm stamping. So don't stamp on texture because it just won't look as great, and you won't get the results that you're looking for. Now, when I stamp, I love to use my ink pads by Color Box. Now, these are fantastic because the surface of this ink pad, you can see there is no surface. It's a solid image. There's no textures, there's no woven fabrics or woven threads or anything. I'm going to get a nice solid image when I stamp this. So for example, let's ink our tree here. This is a nice big tree. I'm going to gently peel it off, and I'm going to get a larger block, and I'm going to lay this down. But as you can see, this tree kind of really can move. Look, I bent that branch a little bit, and I want to make sure that I get the exact right shape because I'm going to die cut this later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the coordinating die that goes with it, and I'm going to lay this on top and make sure that it really gets into all those crevices. And I'm going to notice right off the bat that the trunk is not lined up perfectly. So I'm going to lift that up, and I'm going to straighten that trunk just to make sure that when I die cut this, it's going to be all lined up nice and perfect. So that looks really good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my die off to the side. I'm going to grab some white cardstock, nice and smooth, and I'm going to use the chocolate brown ink pad. When I use a larger stamp, I always turn my ink pad upside down and lightly ink. Now, you're not going to want to press down hard if you do it this way or do it the standard way like this, because these ink pads are very juicy-loosey. If you're getting a lot of ink in other places besides your stamped image, that means you're pressing way too hard. So you want to just lightly tap, tap, tap. And I always like to say when I teach classes, if you press too hard, you'll get ink in your friend's eye. So you don't want to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply just stamp that right there. Now when I stamp, I want to press on the back of my block. I don't want to just hold the edges and hope for the best. I want to press on the back to make sure I get all that direct contact and lift straight up. And look at that. It looks fantastic. Beautiful. Now to clean my stamp again, I'm just going to grab my wipe and my used wipe, and I'm just going to give that a gentle scrub. And now I'm going to peel this off gently and put it back on the sheet that it came on. You never want to store your blocks. You never want to store your stamps on your blocks because sometimes they'll stick and it'll be really hard to get them off. You always want to store them on the storage sheet that they were born on in the very beginning. Stay tuned for even more because we have even more wonderful stamping tips to share.